Welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to What's the Point? I'm Bill Ellis, your host. And today in What's the Point, we welcome Noemi Beres, the co-founder of Podcast Connections. She's brought many of the wonderful guests that we've all heard, and we'll talk about that. But her journey is one of resilience, kindness, and purpose, which makes her just kind of the perfect guest as well as guest provider. Moving between countries, she's faced personal and professional challenges, but she's found ways to create connection and give back. So we are really happy that we have the chance to discuss with her some of the stories behind her journey, the lessons she's learned, and some of her enterprising and creative initiatives. And she has several of them. A lot of them are to inspire and support others. And she's got a very widespread community. So without any further ado, Noemi, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Bill, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
Yes, and it's great to have you here. Let's start with this. You've provided and made connections for us with so many incredible guests. How does it feel to be on that side of the microphone?
Yeah, I enjoy podcast guesting. I love podcast guesting. I started about 4 or 5 years ago, and obviously the first one wasn't brilliant, and I had to practice because, like with everything else in life, you need to be consistent, and you have to rinse and repeat it a few times. But to be honest, I really enjoy, and I enjoy it so much more than just being on a stage and speaking to someone. Because for me, this is like a friendly conversation. And it doesn't really matter how many people will watch it or will listen to it. I think it's kind of, it just feels so much nicer when two people, discussing life, business, whatever.
Well, you know what it does? First of all, I agree with you 100%. I hope people listen, and I hope people are touched. And if even one person is, then I'm happy with what we've done. We may never know, but having this conversation with people like you is rewarding, and I love the casualness and the organic nature of it. And it's especially nice because we've known each other for a bit, so I've got a tiny little bit more insight than perhaps some of the other guests. So, by example, I know that you grew up in Hungary and that you were a family of very moderate circumstances. And how did that background kind of shape your life?
I think what you mentioned is like becoming resilient. It really helped me to become resilient. My parents always supported me. They were always there for me. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, and my dad was the chief of the fireman department in our town. And they worked a lot. They worked hard. We had a small farm. I always helped them on our small, garden farm or whatever you can call it. And so it was, it was like, it was modest, but we always traveled. My parents loved traveling, and this kind of, love of travel kind of, started in my life very early. I became an exchange student, and in Denmark, I went to Danish school. I stayed with a Danish family when I was 16, and they supported me everywhere way they could. But yeah, it was modest. So it also meant that I had to stand on my own feet pretty early, like during my university years. And I decided, like, once I have my master's degree, I will head abroad and start a life and become an entrepreneur, because I knew that that kind of future will wait for me, and that's not going to happen in Hungary.
You've mentioned in our conversation that your Eastern European roots gave you some of the resilience, along with your family and the strong values. What did the heritage of your Eastern European heritage bring to your life?
I think we are pretty resilient people when it comes to that, especially with our history and all the background, First, Second World War. And so it was a lot going on, even in my family, that like my family, my grandparents, they were all affected by World War I, World War II. So I think that's kind of resilience, that like I'm just keep going, whatever happens in life. I never give it up. Like, for example, my grandpa's story. I mean, he fought in World War II, and he walked back on foot during winter, like the harsh Russian winter from Russia to Hungary on foot. and he barely survived. And then he realized that, his mom died and he had to continue his life in his early 30s. So, these stories really form you and shape you as an adult. And I heard all these stories, and I think that really helped me to become the person who I am. And also, like, I come from this small town, and I ended up studying in Denmark for a year when I met amazing people from all around the globe, from Australia to Brazil. And I learned a lot during that, exchange year. So everything, all these small bits and pieces, like a puzzle, really helped me to shape who I am today.
The travel that you've done, and what's interesting, the point you just made, Noemi, I know you learned a lot from your travels, but just occurred to me in your conversation is that you learned a lot from other people that ended up in the same place you were in Denmark. So you had exposure to other cultures without going to Australia, without going to Brazil. Not that you haven't, but that's a really cool situation to have been in, to gain that experience and to gain that, the insight into other people and other countries. So your resilience comes honestly from family and from culture. Your travel started early, and the interest in travel is clear. But what triggered your interest, in particular, somewhat young, go down the path of the entrepreneur?
That's a great question. Yeah. I never wanted to have a boss. I always wanted to be my own boss. I was an only child. So for me, not having a boss was amazing. Plus, I was working for an Irish company for 3 years when I moved to Ireland. And I saw what leader I don't want to be during that 3 years. And I had less patience back then, and I also expressed my opinion about this to the company. And because then again, it was a great place to be, and I loved working with all these people from different countries. But I knew that that's not my destiny. I want to have a company, and I had no clue, like, what will that involve? Like, to be, I just want to be an entrepreneur. And my parents were like, I'm so you're going to lose your job, and the paycheck every second week and everything. And I told them, it's like, I don't care, to be honest, because I know that it's going to be successful. That's how I walked into entrepreneurship. I knew nothing about it. I have master's degree in Scandinavian studies. I had no business, marketing, sales background whatsoever. I was good at, communication. And that's how it started.
I believe very firmly that communication is the actual foundation, not just in business, but in life. And all too often, miscommunication is at the root of most of the issues we face, both business issues and personal issues and interpersonal issues. But we're not here to talk about that right now. When you realized you wanted to be your own boss, what did you go into? What was your first venture when you said, I don't have any skills, but I want to be my own boss? Where did that lead you?
Well, that lead us basically with my husband to buy a franchise. And so we became franchisees, which wasn't a good decision. So we ended up with a franchise, and we had to basically leave it after a year because it didn't work out. I don't want to go into details. We lost money on it. Let's put it that way. And then but thanks to that franchise, we had a business idea, and we became basically the first Hungarian car rental brokers for Hungarian customers. And because they didn't really know that back in Hungary, this was like, it's 100% online business, which was, we started to remote work back in 2007, which was a big thing back then because nobody worked remotely. Like, all my ex-colleagues were just like, what are you doing? How do you earn money with that? And so we became car hire brokers for Hungarian customers, worked with this Irish company from 2007 up to 2020. We still are in touch with them. So we're still doing that business part, but mostly my husband looks after that. I don't have time for that anymore. But yeah, it was an online travel-related business. I was doing a lot of social media marketing, online marketing, content creation, blogging, travel writing, travel again. It was played an important part in my life. So yeah, that's how we started. That's how I started.
Great story and a lot of lessons there. And I want to come back to that, but I do want to touch on, we mentioned up front that what I want to talk about is the human side, the thing behind the thing of what makes Noemi Noemi. You've done a lot of travel and you've had a lot of experience with people from other countries and other cultures. All of those moves, how has that helped to shape your sense of belonging? How has that helped to shape your purpose?
I think getting to know different cultures, different languages helps you immensely when it comes to that. You just getting better reading people, or I'm quite an intuitive person anyway, so I can read people pretty easily. I think that helps a lot when it comes to business. And it just really helped me to work, for example, with American clients, which I never did before. But I had American friends. I had friends from Australia. So like all my background, all my experience with different cultures, it really helped me to figure out like how to do business. And so it's really fascinating, but you never know, for example, an exchange year, where does that lead you in life? And it really helped me to figure out myself at an early stage.
So putting yourself out there and being open to not just travel, but to learning from travel and learning from others. Tell me a little bit more about how that has really impacted you, because it seems like that is at the base of everything you do these days, professionally and personally.
Yeah, learning, it played always an important part in my life. Even when I was a kid, my mom basically, like, quote unquote, wanted to kick me out of my room because I was always learning and I couldn't stop. And so, my classmates picked on me because I was just this kind of nerd who loves learning new things. But that somehow helped me to, for example, start a new business back in 2020, this learning phase, because this continuous learning, because we lost the business in 2020 because of the pandemic. It was travel related. So it just went up in the smoke from one day to another in March in 2020. So we had to figure out something very fast. And so that's how we came up with the idea to start a podcast booking agency. But to be honest with you, Bill, I had no clue about podcasts, nothing. Like, I didn't even listen to podcasts before 2020. I mean, the US is just way ahead of us when it comes to podcasting. And I had to learn fast and quickly and on the spot, on the go, as we were getting new clients on the board. I had to learn, so what am I doing as a podcast booking agent? Like, I knew it's marketing, but like, what am I doing? What am I really doing? So I'm a quick learner, and I needed to be. And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you need to be a quick learner. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important part of our, personal.
Great point. And the fact that you're a learner and an avid learner is reinforced when you said just a few moments ago that your mother had to kick you out of your room, which is interesting because she's a teacher. It says you're learning too much. Go out. Go out
play.
and law firm.
Do something else.
Yeah, I think that's great. So you mentioned getting into the podcast business, and I want to hear more about that. How did you and your husband get the idea to start Podcast Connections? Tell me a little bit more. You said you had to do a lot of learning. You said you got clients on board and you had to learn even more. So several things intrigue me there. Why, how did the idea come from? But also, you must have learned something early on because you were getting clients. So that's a good start for a business.
Yeah, and it's important. It was unusually kind of easy to get clients on board, and I was really surprised. So why we got into podcasting business, because we had an Irish friend, a kind of a mentor, and he was into podcasting way before many of us. And he started basically a course for people who want to start their own podcast booking agency. You paid it was very low fee. You did the course like in 2 weeks, and then you become a podcast booking agent. It's like, okay, go. Now you can just, get those clients on board, and good luck. And so basically we set up a website during one night, and next day, okay, so let's do this. And we still have that website. It's okay. Didn't go through much changes. And that was it. And we started to work with e-commerce experts in the US, from the US, mostly female entrepreneurs, to support them. And that was really fascinating because I had no clue about e-commerce either. So it was, again, this whole your learning curve and learning experience was really fascinating. But then we expanded and we were working with, in different niches with different experts from the US. So, but it was really interesting. But I became a huge fan of podcasting, both sides of the mic, as a guest, as a host. So it was really, really interesting to become part of it, because in our previous business, I wasn't in the front. I wasn't the face of the business. We didn't have the face of the business. It was, we were the middleman between a company and the client. But with podcast booking and the podcast connections, I really had to, start talking to people and getting on those interviews and Zoom calls and whatnot. So it was scary, exciting, and fascinating at the same time.
The background that you explained to us already, the travel, the meeting different people from different countries, meeting people from different countries in a different country, all of you, helps make sense to why you are so incredibly comfortable on the side of the mic you're on today. I asked that question to open up, but I pretty much knew the answer when I asked it. But back to Podcast Connections, is your core business literally connecting podcast guests with podcasters?
Correct. Yeah, it's basically that's what we do. We help entrepreneurs, business owners to share their knowledge, share their stories on podcasts. And it's a PR agency, but solely focusing on podcast guesting and podcast interviews. Yes.
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, it's an invaluable service, and I'm very grateful that you somehow discovered What's the Point, and we've connected, and the many guests that you've connected me with has really provided some good content and lessons and inspiration for a lot of people. So thank you for that role.
Thank you so much.
I think it might be overlooked, but it would have been overlooked had I not been doing a podcast. But I guarantee you now, it's no longer overlooked. You also are very obviously, not the type to just say, okay, well, I'm doing this and that's all I'm doing. You're always learning. You're looking for more. So tell us a little bit more about some of your most recent initiatives, some of the things you have going outside of Podcast Connections.
Oh, yes. I have a lot of things going on all the time. As you know, I'm an artist. I mean, that's also important. I'm a mixed media collage artist, and I love creating collages. It's an homage to my Hungarian heritage, and I was always a creative type. Before the pandemic, I had group exhibitions, installations. So it was always fun. It's kind of my part of who I am. But not to have a boring life, I started basically a service for people to provide them with a silent space, a non-judgmental silent space with positive energy. And it's the silent thinking sessions when people can basically schedule time with me, and they can schedule time to think, because nowadays the world is so busy and there's too much noise going on and we don't even have time to think. And I came up with this idea when I was on a hiking trip in North Carolina recently, this May. And during hiking, I really enjoyed the silence. And when I came back to Cyprus, that's what we need. We need more of this. Because once we have silence, everything comes to the surface and we can think more clearly and we can come up with ideas. So that's the space, non-judgmental, positive space I provide people with. One of my projects. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us, because I know that you do silent thinking sessions, and I want to learn more about your EMSR style solo podcast. Delve into that deeper and start with the basics for people like me that don't really have an understanding of that. So let us know essentially what it is, and then get into how and why you do it, please.
Yes, I started a podcast, but as everybody knows, podcast hosts are so busy organizing guests, scheduling everyone. And I know that you work a lot, and I didn't want to do that because I don't have time for that, to schedule guests on my own podcast. So, but I love reading. I was always a bookworm since I could read. And always loved reading story to my son while he was growing up, but he's 13. So he doesn't like me reading books to him anymore. So I need to put that energy somewhere. So I started an ASMR style reading podcast where I read my friends' books who are authors. Basically, I also promote their books in this way and an homage to their knowledge and their books. And I also enjoy just reading these stories. and help. ASMR style reading is about helping people to relax, to feel less stressed, to even fall asleep. When I went through kind of my rough patch, when my dad passed away due to cancer in 2019, I lost my grandma in the same year, and I had trouble with sleeping, insomnia and everything. So what I did, I started to listen to these books, and usually they read classic books, so there's no copyright problem with them. But I came up with the idea, why not to read like new books? Like, why do we have to go back to Hans Christian Andersen all the time? So let's do something new. But the copyright is important, so I needed to ask my friends' permission to read their books, and obviously they said yes. So I'm really excited about that project. I'm just finishing the first book now and starting the second one in a few weeks. So it's really exciting. And I also can help people just, to relax and to listen to something good and learn something why they start to fall asleep.
What does EMSR stand for?
Oh, yes, I'm going to have a cheat sheet because I can never remember that. So it's the autonomous sensory meridian response. It's basically there are different types of ASMR podcasts. Maybe you came across them. I don't know if you did, but there are certain types when you have a little like paper and people just start to putting or squeezing like squishy balls together and they make a noise, or like paper or touching paper, that everything that helps people with PTSD, with anxiety, with trauma to basically relax. All these very calming noises helps to relax your nervous system. It's very fascinating. So that's what I'm doing and reading the books.
Well, not only is that noble pursuit on your part, and very, from what you say, from your perspective, a very self-fulfilling pursuit, you've got a magnificently calming voice and way about you. So if anyone's really interested in trying to pursue MSR and addressing some of the things that Noemi just talked about, check out all of her information. That'll be in the show notes, because just by speaking with you, I assure you it's calming. Even without doing all of the things that you do. It is. So thank you for that. You also say that you are someone who doesn't live by the rules. What does that mean to you, and what are the benefits of that, and what are perhaps some of the stumbling blocks in not living by the rules?
I never liked living by the rules. I think since I was growing up, I was always the odd one out and kind of the lonely wolf, which is not good. This is not always good because remote work, loneliness, it's kind of become the part of you until you find your community. And once you find other people who like you, you just find your family, like I did for example, with the Go-Givers. And because you can find them everywhere, but once you find them, it's really interesting. And I do live by rules, but they are maybe different than other people's rules. So we can all set up our own rules as long as they serve like a positive part of our lives. And it's fascinating. But I always love to do my own thing, and it's interesting.
And just for clarity, what I understand you to be saying is you don't follow a traditional path, as opposed to the heck with laws and the heck with everything else. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, right? So
I still stick to we pay tax and everything, so we play by the rule. With Cyprus too.
So it's just Noemi being Noemi, as opposed to Noemi being criminal. You mentioned the Go-Giver, and I think that's where we first touched base. Long before
that's how it was.
Our podcast connection. For those that aren't familiar, The Go-Giver is a book written by John David Mann and Bob Berg, and Bob has created several groups that live on, talk about, and benefit from the Go-Giver philosophy. If you're not familiar, go get the book, The Go-Giver. Once you discovered the book and the premise and the communities, did you realize that you were a go-giver before you had that exposure?
Probably I didn't call myself a go-giver because I didn't know what it was. But there was a pivotal moment in my life because we ordered something from the US, like marketing stuff, and they gave us a gift. And this box arrived, opened up the box, and the Go-Giver was on top. It's like, what's this? What's this little red book? And that's the Go-Giver. So when I read it, I recognized that basically that's what I've been doing for some time now.
Right.
And probably that's why I felt so close to the community, and somehow just giving back to community and giving back to my family and giving back to people, helping them, be there for them. I think giving value to other people's lives, it was always a part of me since growing up. And maybe it was just, started to call myself a go-giver after I joined the community. Yeah. But I was always a go-giver in heart.
And that's exactly the answer I expected to hear from you, because, the go-giver philosophy in a nutshell is giving more in value than you take in payment. So basically it's being other-focused, not to the point of being a doormat or sacrificing our own value needs and wants, but looking at things from a bigger picture. It's not just about me. It's what I'm doing. Does it have an impact, a negative impact on others? And also, what can I learn about others so that I can understand whether I have the opportunity to fulfill what they're looking for? And if not, can I direct them to someone that can? So that's kind of the go-giver in a nutshell. But it's a brilliant philosophy when you get an exceptionally talented writer and a strong communicator, connector together. That's the kind of thing that happens. It's pretty interesting. That also kind of leads us back to the human side of connection. And you are an absolute connector in every way. What have you learned about the power of just listening?
Well, it's powerful. And I wasn't always like this. I learned it the hard way, and because I didn't really listen to people before, and I realized that's one of my negative traits, and I have to work on it. And I've been doing kind of inner work in the past, 10, 15 years, and I think it really helped me to understand how important it is just to listen, and how silence is so powerful most of the time. And being present and listen, both. I think that's crucial, and that's the key here. And basically, that's what I'm doing, and it's the power of silence and listening. Also, when I'm doing my silent thinking session. So I think we all need to learn this, but it takes a lot of practice, because nowadays we always want to jump in and try to fix everyone's problems and everyone's lives, and we just forget to listen to them. And if we just sit down and listen and not to try fix things straight away, probably we would end up in an easier situation. And I've been there and done that. So yeah, I learned the hard way.
I think we all have, some to a greater, more consistent extent than others. But building on what you said, listening with the intent to fix, listening with the intent to say, here's what is the correct way to look at things, or here's the right way, isn't listening. It's just not. That's responding. Back to your silent thinking sessions and your EMSR work, and I don't want names, but is there a specific instance or a specific time or more than one where you suddenly just had the light go off and go, that's why I do this work? And what's the example?
It was when I started, because for years I kind of searching for what's the meaning of my life, or what's going to be the legacy I leave behind. I am just an entrepreneur and I'm earning money for living and helping people to get on those shoes, but I wanted something deeper, something more meaningful. And how can I help people? Because when I get on a show, my focus is on to help just one single person who listens, and that's a win-win situation for me. So I did so many other things, like I studied art therapy, positive psychology, and I talked about that on podcast too, how art can help to heal you from anxiety, stress, trauma. So for me, this is what describes me when it comes to that.
It's great when we are able to find validation of what we do straight away.
Yeah, straight away. This idea came to me after my trip to the US, and I sat down, I started to chat with AI as well about it. How can I help? How can I, incorporate that into my life? And, just the light light bulb just went off. It's like, oh my gosh, I can help people like this. This is amazing. And it's not even soothing for them, but it's really soothing for me. So it's a win-win situation for both of us, because why would we start something that doesn't bring us joy? Like in business too. Because if I start a service that it bores me, or it doesn't even, excite me or fascinate me, so why would I do that at first place? So if I can do something that I truly immensely enjoy, like doing the ASMR style reading or helping people with thinking during my silent thinking session, I knew it will bring me joy. And if it brings me joy, so I have a positive, high vibe energy going into that. So when I started it, I knew this is what I was looking for. So for so many years.
What you just explained, I talk a lot about the difference, the interreliance on purpose and passion. So when I hear you talk, and for the past half an hour or so, believe that your purpose, and none of us have a singular purpose, I don't believe, but we do have some driving core purpose, in my opinion. And for you, that's two things: learning and helping others. And the passion that comes to that is finding out how to do that in a way that fulfills you.
Yeah, absolutely, spot on. Yeah.
Because to me, passion is like kindling in a fire. It'll go out. Sometimes we have to recharge our passions.
Yes.
And I think part of that might speak to why you have so many different things that you're involved in, because you have so much passion, and doing one thing for a period of time, it's like, okay, fine, what else can I do? That's driven by your need to learn. That's driven, and I'm making these assessments here, and tell me if I'm
No, you're
correct or not.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think that's really important. The need of learning new things is the same like I'm learning new languages. Like I'm learning Irish, I'm learning Spanish, Greek. Yeah. So I love just trying out new things and improving myself. And not to be a maximalist or anything like that. I'm recovering. Go on. No, I'm working hard on that part. But just experiencing new things. Like, again, I think everything goes back to where I'm from, all the different cultures, the different languages, the different people I met along the way. I didn't really live in a bubble many people do where I came from. I think it really helped me to, keep that fire going, keep that passion going. And I do still believe in astrology, not the one that you read in magazines, but the real one that it's been around for thousands of years. And I'm a Scorpio, so kind of I'm passionate by core, in core.
I'm completely unfamiliar with the traits of the different signs, so I'll just say
We'll not go there.
listeners that know what she's talking about. She's a Scorpio, yay! So speaking of things that you that light your fire, that drive your passion, how does your love for and involvement in your art and your music, how does that help others, or is that something that is completely self-fulfilling?
Music is mostly self-fulfilling. I have drums. Like I have a djembe drum, I have a handpan, I have a tongue drum, and I drum every morning. I pick my poison, so which drum I use that morning. And I love that. It's really relaxing. So it's part of I do meditation. After I'm exercising, I'm doing my meditation and I'm doing my drumming. So let's just for a few minutes. But that's for me, for my own joy. Art, it's a bit different because I want to share my Hungarian heritage with the world. It's basically what I'm sewing on canvas. I'm sewing my memories, all these postcards, vintage photos on a canvas. And this is kind of my diary of my life and of my family's life. And and I truly enjoy that. It's a form of meditation for me when I'm working on my different collages. It's really important. It's kind of, we can say that quote unquote saved my life while I was grieving. And because that was during the pandemic, the whole family was at home, homeschooling, everything. The world was upside down. I stopped watching news. And every evening I had a kind of a routine. I went into bed and I worked. I saw these collages on canvas, listening to audiobooks or music or something. And it really relaxed me and helped me to kind of get into a meditative state. So that's art. I always pick something that relaxes me and that helps me to kind of be a better person for. Yeah.
It sounds terrific. First of all, let me, you said, on the music side, you said that the drumming is for you and relaxing for you. Is it also relaxing for your family, for your husband and son? Or are they, oh, mom's up.
I
Give her 10
usually
minutes.
do that when they're not at home. Let's put it that way. I'm not that bad.
It's like grandparents that give their grandkids drums and their
Yeah.
children go, what are you doing, Dad? But the art, let me ask you this. Where do you put the art? Do you sell it? Do you give it? Do you keep it? What's the end game for your art?
Yeah, it was a bit different. Like I had different phases when it came to my art. So before the pandemic, I had group exhibitions, different exhibitions in different European countries. I usually made cut and paste collages, like paper on paper, and I sold them. I gave them away as a gift. So it's different. But what am I doing right now? It's a bit different project because they're very special to me. Like you can, if you're watching the show, you can see them behind me and on the wall. It's my little exhibition. And so basically, they are related to my family, to my heritage. So I don't really want to sell them. Maybe if there's money that I can sell a few of them, I think, one day. But my goal is to have a solo exhibition and also a coffee table book with all the collages I made, hand-sewn collages I made, and with all the stories behind every single collage. And it would be kind of an album or something that people could, hold in their hands and, check them out or see them or,
What a great
discover
idea.
me.
I know that type of product as a coffee table book. I've got a few behind me if anyone is watching. And if you're listening and you'd rather watch, or if you're curious about watching, just go to What's the Point on YouTube, and you can see the terrific artwork that Noemi has behind her. We've talked a lot about your resilience, and let's delve there a little bit. You talked about the impact of your father's death, which I think we all have that type of impact. But how did that affect you, and how did you get through that? And what else was going on during that time?
Yeah, it was in 2019, so just right before the pandemic. And because he was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, so it was 2 years when basically you have a death sentence, and then it was incurable. We all knew it. And he was given like 6 months, and he lived like for 2 years. And he passed away on my son's 7th birthday. So whenever is celebrating my son's birthday is always my dad's death anniversary. So it hit hard, like losing him on a day when his grandson was born 7 years ago. And he was only 63, so he was pretty young when he passed away. And it really hit me hard because I was an only child, as I mentioned, and I was the center of his universe, the only, the little girl of his universe, and he always protected me and always my biggest cheerleader together with my mom. And losing someone, it was really, really and extremely hard. He was an amazing grandfather, and to know that like my son can experience him as a granddad, as an amazing granddad he was, it was hard. And I was grieving for some time, but I couldn't even grieve properly because then the pandemic hit. When I started to loosen up a bit, and I started to feel better. So the pandemic happened in 2020, lost the business. I supported my mom and lost the business, and the pandemic happened. So it was a mess and inside of me, and health-wise, I was really hit by this whole experience. And there were stages that I couldn't even walk upstairs, and physically I was really stressed out, and anxiety hit, panic attacks. So it was a lot going on. But thankfully, I had my mom, my support, my family, and also my art. I mean, my art really helped me to get through it. And that's when I discovered that if I do it every single evening, it will bring me more peace. And it did.
Yeah, the finding something that brings us peace is amazing. So art and drums. Those of you at home, give that a shot. You spend most of your life, and it becomes very clear in the stories that we learn about you, caring about others and giving to others and how can I help others. And I'm in a situation where I know several caregivers. And all too often, I find that caregivers forget to give care to themselves. How do you take care of your own well-being when you're so focused on others' well-being?
I realized that in back in 2020 that I can't go on like that. So if I'm looking after everyone, so who is going to look after me? So then I made up my mind and I started to exercise regularly. I became a walker. I always loved walking. Like when we lived in Ireland, I walked on the beaches of the Irish Sea and it was beautiful. But I somehow stopped doing that. But I became a walker again and I started to look after my health and, what I'm eating and also what am I doing every morning. So I think I mentioned that before. I have my routine. When I say goodbye to my son, he's going to school. Then I'm doing my exercise, my weights, my meditation, my affirmations, and also drumming. It's very important.
Yeah.
So it's kind of part of my routine. And I know if you are like your soul, your mental health is there and you look after yourself, your body will follow. And I think that's really important. So that's okay if we be eating well and that's part of our wellness, but our well-being is so much more deeper than that. Doing the inner work, working on ourselves. I do love self-help books, not every one of them, but they help me a lot. And I'm also like visualization, manifestation and stuff for like 10 plus years. I've been doing that. So yeah, it kind of keeps me looked after by myself. And also self-love, which is so important. And especially for women, we can be so horrible when it comes to self-love. I saw that from my friends and always, I'm not good at this, I'm not good enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not beautiful enough. And I got somehow fed up with that kind of mentality. And I lost friends because of that. Because again, I was the odd one out who didn't really care with those things. But I know that I have to look after myself and mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yeah. You talked about a lot of things that you've done, and I admire them all. So by example, I know that with our time difference, it's your nighttime, and you took care of yourself before you gave of yourself to give this conversation, this interview, this podcast by going for your evening walk.
Yeah.
So you put yourself, literally in this case, you put yourself first and you schedule this around that. I admire that. One thing I do just want to amplify, of all the things you talked about, eating right is something that I wish all of us, in particular the U.S. society, but worldwide, would focus more on because we eat so poorly. We don't know the impact that has on us, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And even spiritually. So I just want to throw that out there in the mix because you mentioned it, but kind of glossed over it. And I'm getting very passionate on trying to eat better, trying to eat right, and knowing the benefit of that. Through all of that, was there a time, Noemi, that you said, "What am I doing? Why am I following this path?" Did it ever get to the point of discouragement that you thought about maybe waving the white flag and moving in a different direction?
No. No, I mean, it's no, I think maybe this is my stubbornness. I don't know, but I never look back and I see everything as an experiment and I'm learning from it, like, losing money on different businesses or, something stops, I'm going to start a new one, but I know it's going to succeed because I put my mind on it. So I'm just really focused on everything, what I do, and I never look back. And I think that's so important in life. Just keep going. I mean, that's my motto in life. If I don't have tattoos, but if I had one, that would be definitely just keep going because that's how I live my life. And I never no right flags. No, I just like, let's do this and let's go and we'll see what happens. There's always miracles in this life. So.
Your answer to that question was the quickest, the shortest, and the least surprising answer I've gotten to any question I've asked in 100 plus episodes. Do you ever think of giving up? No. Okay, well, I could have said
Make
that.
fun.
I could have said, I know you've never thought of that. But you know what? That's an incredible trait. And for listeners, because part of the reason I do this show is to try to allow people to learn from things that my guests have done or are doing. And you just touched on something that I think is very important. What do you suggest to people that feel stuck? What do you feel, people that feel maybe unheard or question themselves? What would your advice to them be?
It's easier said than done that, okay, just do some changes, try to journal and meditate, and then your life will be solved. It's not. I mean, it takes a lot of work, but there's always a first step. And when I started anything in my life, I always took the small step approach. So whatever you do, when I start, it's just a basic example. When I started to do my walking, I walked like 10 minutes around the block, and that was it. And now I'm walking an hour or longer. So it always starts with, everything starts with small steps. So take the small steps approach. If you can, just maybe you can get out of the bed that day. That was your biggest thing that you could do, and that's fine. Or you brush your hair or brush your teeth. Mm-hmm. That's the second biggest thing, especially if you have anxiety, like depression. I mean, those are things that it's not easy to deal with, and you can't just journal them out of your life, because that's not how it works. But just take tiny steps. It always works. I know it's hard taking those tiny steps for the first time, because I've been there, but it works. Like when you do it, when you practice it, when you do something consistently, persistently, and you don't give up, it's important. And community, to have people that support you, to cheer you on why you're doing that, because nobody wants to be lonely, nobody wants to be alone.
We're all looking for a secure attachment.
Yeah.
The advice you just gave is so sound, and just to put it in my words, what I heard you say is look for small victories, count and cherish the small victories, and be patient. Because when we do things that are, quote, small victories, we might be quick to say, well, that was nothing, but they add up. So small victories added up lead you to the path. Is that a fair assessment of restatement of your thoughts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Perfectly said, Bill. Perfectly said, Bill.
Well, thank you. So just a few more questions for you. I know it's getting late for you. You touched on this earlier, but tell me more about what you want your legacy to be. And what do you think a legacy is?
Yeah, the legacy for me is, what a legacy is, just something to leave behind that people will remember you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can achieve in life. Just to remember us how we affected their life. And for me, is like someone to be remembered as a kind-hearted, heart-centered woman who helped people and who made their life better, and who was nice to people, like genuinely nice, no fakeness, and listen to them, and being present with people. I think the people we remember that, and I'm also someone who giving out compliments a lot to people, and I learned how to appreciate compliments too. I think that's also important. So that's kind of my legacy. To help people to remember me as a heart-centered woman.
So a key trait to what you say, in my experience with you, is a word that you didn't say, but I know pervades your entire life's action, is genuine. When you give compliments, they're genuine compliments. They're not blowing smoke, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. You also say that kindness is not just a value for you, that it's a strength that you own and embrace. Tell us more about kindness in your life.
It's so easy to be kind, but we are not. It's so easy to say thank you to people, and we don't do that. Like after a podcast interview, and when you finish or something next day, you say thank you. You say a thank you card. And just being kind, just being there for each other. It's so simple, yet so rarely practiced in our lives. And I think if we teach our kids to be kind to each other, we will live in a better world for sure. Great
answer. I love it and agree with it 100%. Tell us about a recent moment that reinforced your belief and your knowledge that being a go-giver made a difference.
That's a great question. Well, I think it's very interesting because when you connect with people like Bob and he becomes your mentor and friend, it's really amazing. And he introduced me to people that I never had dreamt of. Because it's not like I'm an imposter syndrome or something, but I'm realistic. So I live in Europe, in Cyprus. This is a tiny island. People would never really know about my business or anything if I'm not part of that community. There was this pivotal moment when I was on a podcast. It was a British podcast. And I just told the host, that was right before I joined the Go-Giver community, that, I'm going to join the Go-Giver community. That was like 4 years ago. And after we started recording the episode, he told me, it's like, Noemi, this is going to be a life-changing experience for you, like joining this community. He didn't know about this community. He just bought the book during the show because he just Googled it and bought it on Amazon. And he told me, I'm going to read this, but I know there's something in there for you. And for me, it was such a life-changing experience. The way I helped others and the way they helped me, they really helped my business to thrive. So without them, it would have been such a hard journey. And now I kind of feel I'm flying because I'm getting all these amazing opportunities, like on a plate. And I'm kind of amazed, like, what's going on? Do I deserve this or what's happening? But again, like the universe and the whole world works like this. If you put your energy out there, if you help people, if you give value to other people's lives, it will come back to you, tenfold. And I don't want to, sound too woo or whatever, but like it does. This is how energy works. This is how the world works.
That's exactly correct. And we talked earlier about, did you know you were a go-giver? And you knew you were without that name, without that specific definition. So the way you were living your life was putting out into the universe exactly what you're getting back. When we put things out there, we don't do it for a specific return under the Go-Giver philosophy. We don't look for immediate returns, but we're going to get things that we least expect. Bob talks often about the law of left field, which we don't have time to get into, but I urge people to check it out. Noemi, we talked about your life across different cultures and how different cultures have come to you, how you learned other languages. We talked about your silent thinking sessions, your MSR, your art, your music, your drumming. We talked about the fact that you're going to be remembered for your energy and your kindness and your positive spirit and being such a gracious guest. But at the end of all of that, there's one final question that I ask every guest. And however you choose to respond is your choice. Noemi, what's the point?
The point is to live a life that brings you joy, happiness, peace, and love. That's the whole point. And I know money is important too, obviously, because you can't live without money. And I'm not against it. It's part of it. But without love and joy, what's the point?
Outstanding answer. I'm not surprised in the least. Noemi, you are an absolute delight. I am thrilled that you not only found me from a business perspective, but that we've become friends and that you agreed to be a guest on this show, because your insights, your knowledge, your beliefs I'm positive are going to help a lot of my listeners. And at the very least, I guarantee you they've helped me. So thank you for your time and sharing your insight and your beautiful smile and your calming voice.
Thank you so much, Bill. It was an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thanks for tuning in. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise there is value to be gained in every one. Taking a second to rate, review, and share the show helps make us more discoverable and enables others to find out what's the point. If you'd like to learn more about Bill Ellis and his services, please visit his website, billellis.com. See you next time.